welcome back to the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Today, Noell comes onto the show to talk about some of her latest music and current tour. And remember, you can listen to this podcast on all your favorite platforms, including JacksonNeillPodcasts.com. That is the official home for everything that I publish. So head over there if you haven't already to catch all of the episodes of Anything Goes and more. So Noell, currently when I talked with her, was on her first ever nationwide tour, the Hood So Proud tour, where she was supporting Tokyo Jets, among other artists. And I talked with her about that, as well as her current project, Ego Aside. She just released it. It's a really, really awesome one. We talked about that project, other stuff she's working on, and just how excited she is for 2019. Here's my interview with her. So you're currently on tour. You're on the tour bus right now. Just how's that going?
It's going really good. I've never been on tour before. I have opened up for a few people. We drove to New York before in a Sprinter to open up for Gucci. We drove to Dallas before to open up for New Edition. And I used to do a bunch of gigs, like weddings. So we used to be on the road for like 3 months, just doing that, but never actually been on an actual tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read that this is your first like nationwide tour. I guess what have you been kind of learning as you go to all these different cities?
I guess staying ready no matter what. Like we ran into a few hiccups and we didn't have time to either sleep or get ready properly or even sound check. So just really learning to just be ready at all times and prepare for any problems that may arise. Mm-hmm.
And on this tour, I just told you I interviewed Milano. You guys have done you guys have worked together before. She was telling me all about you, how awesome you guys are together. What's it like being on tour with someone like that on your first nationwide tour? Who you already know going into it.
It's such a blessing to know the people already, because it eliminates a lot of nervousness because you know someone and it's easy to connect with people and to be people for weeks, and so it's much easier than I can imagine than being on tour with people you don't really know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. It's got to be it's got to be easy to when you're on the road constantly to at least have a familiar face there.
Exactly.
So right now, this year you've released your project Ego Aside. Just actually came out on April 6th. Can you just tell me a little bit about that and a little bit behind the process of that project?
Yeah, so we worked on that. Well, we've been working on music for a long time, a few years before I actually put out a project. So it's funny, a lot of those songs are actually very old, but still relevant. And a lot of people are super surprised when I tell them because it sounds like, kind of did it a couple weeks ago. But I'm a writer, so I write my music. And I like to write whenever I go through things. I don't just like to listen to a beat and say, I think this sounds like a love song, so let me write about love. It's like I only write experiences. So if I'm feeling in a happy, loving mood, then I'll write about that. If I'm not, then I won't, no matter how the beat sounds. It'd be an amazing, happy beat. And if I'm not feeling that way, then I'm not going to touch it until I'm ready for that. So the Ego Aside is just basically about being vulnerable and talking about things, saying things people don't really like to say or people are afraid to say. This is a world right now where everyone is trying to be tough, and the music industry is very tough. A lot of people, we're going through this phase, at least in the R&B, urban, hip-hop genre, that we don't like to care, and we want to be complete savages. But for that project, it's kind of like I'm putting my ego to the side. I'm going to talk about things and, things that we go through, things that hurt, and things that aren't pretty all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's so cool that you mention it in that way. I mean, I think even just looking at the cover where you have some flowers on a very colorful, very very cool cover in my opinion. I think that plays into that plays into that whole message as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I wanted to have I wanted to show more. I have black on and everything. Yes, there's still a lot of flowers, and it's not really a picture of me smiling, but there is flowers, kind of metaphorically speaking, like, the good, the bad, the ugly, and something beautiful coming out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, certainly. There's a lot in that one image. You said some of these songs are kind of older. How far back do some of these tracks go?
2017. I actually did one of those in 2016. But we have literally over 150 records, and even newer ones that we did even yesterday, last week, a month ago. But I wanted to put something cohesive together, so those went together, even the older records and Emotions from years ago.
Yeah, certainly. And I guess so. If you have all those tracks, what kind of was going in your mind when you decided, okay, these are the 8. This is what I want to make my project out of. How did you decide that?
So I wanted the first project that I dropped to. I didn't want it to be like pretty, and I didn't want it to be polished. Because that's not me. I'm an emotional person. So I wanted it to. I want to almost like first impressions. One of my first projects to really emphasize on the type of person I am. I know I have friends who are very, they're like sweethearts, and they're like sappy and lovey all the time, no matter what they go through. But I'm not really like that. I'm more emotional. So I didn't want it to be a polished project. I didn't want it to be a bunch of love songs. I wanted it to be in a state of which I was in now. So I think everything should be current. Like I said, I won't even write something if I'm not feeling that mood, because I feel like you can hear it through the music. The feeling and the emotion comes more when you're feeling that way. Mm-hmm. So for the first one, I wanted it to be the state I was in when I released the project, which is that kind of emotional, a little bipolarness. Again, I didn't want too many love songs. I didn't want too much polished. I think I'll get to that in like a few years. But I also want to show growth. And it's like if you start off super happy, nowhere to really go.
Exactly. We're only way to go is down, I guess, right?
Exactly.
So,
right.
So, you keep talking about how you have to feel these emotions and how, you have to be in that kind of present mind when you write a certain song. And I think on this album, you can really hear that on tracks like Speechless, and Love Without Ownership, that emotion that you felt at that certain time really shows through on those tracks.
Thank you. That's what I was definitely trying to get across, is that it came off that way.
Mm-hmm. So I think you touched on it a little bit in terms of the name Ego Aside, but I kind of want to go a little bit more in depth on that name. Why exactly Ego Aside?
Because so when it comes to songs like Live Without Ownership or Speechless, just saying things like on Speechless, it's like I've been trying to play hard to keep. Like, people say they try to play hard to get all the time. I'm saying I'm trying to play hard to keep because I don't want you to switch up and change because you feel uncomfortable. And it's something that women don't like to say. People don't like to admit that. Like, you have such a pride of your ego to the side to say that. To say, like, I'm actually playing this game with you just so you won't get too comfortable and wind up leaving, because obviously I have past experience of that. So I think just saying that, saying your pride or your ego to the side, but it's just a bunch of lines like that throughout the entire project, and even in Love Without Ownership. Like, I'd rather this just be casual. I'd rather be someone you don't know, because I feel you can't lose someone you don't know. So it's also kind of putting your person aside and just being vulnerable and honest. And again, I wanted to have a bunch of that throughout this project. I didn't want to have too much like, I'm this shit, or I'm this, I'm that. I didn't want it to be like that. I wanted to come off as very vulnerable and honest and open. And I have friends. I'm a female. Like, I know what we think on a daily basis, regardless of what we put on social media when we're around other people. That's kind of why I chose that name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. And something you mentioned right there, I think, really stands out to me, that vulnerability and that honesty. And this is just your first project. Did you find it was kind of hard to open up that much on just your first body of work?
I did at first, and I think the more I started recording, the easier it got. Because the first time I started writing, even Love Without Ownership, I was inside the studio with a bunch of people, and some of the people I didn't know, and I was kind of nervous. I'm like, oh, they're about to hear me, and it's, this song is not like your typical song. It's more so like, you know. But then I basically started getting used to it, and then I wound up starting to record with people, the same people each and every time. So they made it easy for me too. And once we started talking about my experiences, I realized they were more drawn to me as friends, like friendship-wise, and they kept, encouraging me and telling me, like, look, that's why we like you so much, because, you're very honest and you put it out there and don't really care what people think.
Yeah, exactly. You're comfortable in your own skin. You're able to kind of, put yourself all out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, this being your debut project, for a first-time fan listening to it, I guess, what would you like a listener to take away after listening to Ego Aside?
Like we just said, like being true to yourself, basically. Again, we're in a generation, we're in a phase right now, like where it's cool to kind of like not care. It's cool to think so highly of yourself or let pride get in the way. Because of what we listen to, obviously, and what we see on a daily basis. So we're products of our environment, but just to listen to it and let people know that it's okay to, to feel those emotions and to be sad and to be vulnerable and to be honest. And it doesn't make you a horrible person. And actually, it'll bring forth a lot of blessings for you to own that instead of living in lies. And I've had a lot of people even come to me already and tell me what they liked about my music, and some of the points that I just spoke, they told me. So actually a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a project you can definitely hear that honesty kind of show through on each one of the tracks, and by the time you're done listening, it's a really kind of cool emotional experience, I would say, for that EP.
Thank you so much. I appreciate those words.
So you told me you recorded you were working on all these different tracks for this project. You had to narrow it down, and you just seem like an artist who's very, who kind of has already thinking about where you're going next, where you're kind of growing. I guess in your personal opinion, I know this project just released, but for you, what do you think is the next step for you to grow as an artist?
I just want to continue to write. I'm really big on the actual lyrics and music, so I know, this is just a project. It's just an EP. It's not an album. I think my actual album, when I drop it, I think it'll do really, really well, and I think it'll, progress me to the next level. But I'm not more so concerned about as far as where I'm gonna go in like the industry or fame wise. But I just know I want to stick to being the same person the entire ride and continuing to write and continuing to, again, get my emotions across and stay true in myself and my emotions in music. Makes sense?
Yeah, that definitely does make sense in that yeah, you just want to keep on going on the same route that you'd established with your debut project.
Yeah.
So I guess now just looking forward to the rest of 2019, and you're still on tour. Just how are you feeling with this project out and everything like that in mind?
I feel really good. I'm getting amazing feedback and organic responses. So I mean, it feels really good for me. First of all, for that, just putting that project out and getting the feedback that I have already. And then the tour is helping me too, because I'm experiencing and I'm learning, and I know a lot more tours is to come. So I might get on a tour this fall, actually. So I know that this is helping, and it's a great experience. And I'm loving it. And I don't sleep anyway usually, so it's nothing new.
If you don't sleep anyway, you're already perfect for tour life.
Exactly.
Well, that's all my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jack.
Again, a big thank you to Noell for coming onto the podcast. Remember, go down in the description. There you'll find links to all of her stuff. You can follow her on Instagram or your other favorite social media platforms. And also, check out her project, Ego Aside. It's a really, really fun listen. I have links down in the description where you can find that on your favorite streaming platforms. So you can go and check out that project, because it's definitely one you guys want to check out. And make sure to watch out for Noell and everything that she has planned coming up. And that'll do it for this episode of the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Remember to visit jacksonneillpodcast.com to check out all the latest episodes of Anything Goes, as well as my sports and music ones. Also, if you liked this interview, if you liked this content, head over to Patreon, link in the description. There is bonus content available from this interview with Noell and all of my other interviews for Anything Goes. Just pay a small monthly subscription fee, support the podcast. It's just me doing this, no big team behind it, so any little bit really helps, and you get access to all of this cool bonus content. Also down there in the description, final links down there, I promise, are links to my social media accounts on Instagram and Twitter at JacksonNeill20. Give me a follow on there if you enjoy the content. With that, that's everything I have for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you all next time.